My guest this evening on Three Food Memories has the grace and elegance of a Kala Zampati gown with the grit and strength of a brickies labourer. Ita Buttrose's career in Australian publishing and TV spans 8 decades. She is media royalty. The Grace Kelly, if you will. Sure, we can fan club her trailblazing achievements and iconic status, but in doing this, we risk the opportunity to understand the essence that is Ita. But don't be fooled by the gorgeous hair, lipstick, and pretty eyes. With a proud public school education, she still is Ita from the block, and rest assured, she's here to keep me on my toes. While few can say they've interviewed Ita, how many can say they've interviewed Ita on their 50th birthday? Ladies and gentlemen, again, please welcome Ita Claire Buttrose, AC OBE. Whoa! Needless to say, I'm shitting myself, but anyway. Ita, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's go back 50 years. You're at Cleo magazine, a magazine you created. What's the most important thing you did with Cleo for the Australian women?
Oh, I got men to take their pants off.
Which brings me straight to the sealed section. Let's talk, whose idea was it to create this sealed section?
Well, we didn't put the centrefold in the sealed section. I mean, what you see is what you saw. But the sealed section was an Italian idea. And one of my colleagues had come back from Italy and had shown me this. And it was to do with contraception in Italy. And of course it was frowned upon because it's a very Catholic country. And so I put it in my drawer to contemplate what I might do with it because it was a great idea. And then it began as a health thing. Somebody had been to look at mastectomies and the pictures were very graphic and we'd never seen anything like it before. And we thought it was a bit much for our readers to endure. And I said, I've got an idea. I said, and I got the sealed section out of my drawer and I said, we'll put the pictures in the sealed section. So that's how it began. It began with a sealed section of women's bosoms that had had operations, and we were interested in what we had to endure as women. We go through a lot, actually, from time to time. And we felt that this was the way to present it to the readers. And then it kicked off, of course. Lots of things went into the sealed section.
So let's talk about this, the centrefold. What was the criteria for choosing your subject? Was it based on measurement of personality or measurement of...
In the beginning, it was any man who said yes. Because it was really difficult to get centrefolds. And we were running out of options. And suddenly somebody, Julie Clark, our youngest member, had the idea of asking Jack. And we did, and he said yes. So that's how Jack Thompson became the first Cleo centrefold.
And who were the men consecutively? Do you remember them?
I only remember their bodies.
Let's tidy this up. Your maternal grandmother, who you were named after, Ita, said there were 2 things a girl should know: how to make scones and how to waltz.
That's true.
Yep.
She taught me both.
And you took these skills and expanded them into the Australian Woman's Weekly. No sealed section there, bummer. But what are you most proud of your time at the Weekly?
Oh, just editing the magazine. It was then the top job for a woman journalist in Australia. It was a weekly magazine, not a monthly as it is today, even though it's still called the Weekly. It went into 1 in 4 homes. It was read by 45% of all women, 14 and over, and about 20% of all men. It was very powerful. Nobody realised the power of the Weekly. It was able to achieve all sorts of things.
We're going to During your time at the Weekly, you told me earlier that it was you who discovered Joan Campbell.
Joan Campbell was a Clio discovery. So I was looking for someone to do the food pages, and I had a photographer called Alan Nye, and he did the food pages to start with. One day he complained that he had to pay $8 for a bottle of Grange. That's how much it was back then. He thought that was expensive. I hate to think what he'd think now if he wanted to buy a bottle of Grange. And Alan was temperamental, I think would be the way to describe him. And one day he just quit. And I had to get somebody in a hurry. And Joan Campbell and her husband, Julian Russell, were friends of my parents. And I knew that she could cook. And so I offered her a job. And that's how she started. She started her food career with the Weekly, with Clio.
So before we get into your food memories, and they're fantastic, what's Ita like in the kitchen?
Oh, not bad. No, not bad, because my parents always wanted us to cook, us being my brothers and I, and they very cunningly had us competing for who would make pancakes on Sunday, who would make spaghetti Sunday night dinners, who would do the roast, so we were very competitive.
Okay, so let's move into your first memory. That can start coming in now when it's ready. So we're bringing in the memory to you. Please enjoy, make the noises. We get a little bit of it in the background and we create FOMO. Here you go. We're having a little bit of an adjustment for our first one. Now, this first dish is a fish dish, and this memory takes us back to fishing with your father in Sydney Harbour.
Well, not fishing with Dad, but back in the time when I was a girl, we used to walk around to Watson's Bay. It was about 20 minutes from our place. And at Watson's Bay, the fishermen would bring their catch in from on the beach. And they would sell their fish outside the Watson's Bay Hotel. So you could get a whole snapper for 1 6p. Now, I looked it up today. What's that worth? That's about 15 cents in today's currency. And so that was a Friday ritual for Dad and I. And then I had to cook, because I was studying food at Dover Heights Home Science High School, I had to cook a fish. And so I decided I'd cook this whole snapper that Dad had bought. And I stuffed it with tomatoes and onions and just baked it. And it was so beautiful. And we got a lemon from the neighbour's tree, which is what we often did. Squeezed lemon over. And Dad had to write a review of my cooking for the school report. And so he wrote that it was pretty good. He liked it. And I'd done a good job. So that was it. Friday fish at the Watson's Bay Hotel was a ritual. And you can't believe that we used to be able to do that. If you went to Watson's Bay now, it's so completely different. In a sense, it's not, but it is. The fishermen no longer sell their fish at the pub.
What was some of the other seafood you remember at the market there? And was all this stuff caught in Sydney Harbour?
Yeah. And probably outside the heads. Well, I think they used to get John Dory's, flathead. That's as much as I can remember. Snappers, brim was good. It was always fresh. And the Italians had started coming into Australia after World War II, and they discovered all the oysters that were on the rocks, and they picked the oysters, hatched the oysters off the rocks at Parsley Bay, which is where we lived.
Your support for women has travelled next to your lipstick your whole life, but you're also a proven expert on men.
I don't know about that.
Well, you've got me wrapped around your finger, so let's just be real here. Would you just the way that you interact with men, your understanding of men? Would you say that's because of your relationship with your father and your 3 brothers?
Oh, I think my 3 brothers would be the first to tell you that I owe everything in my life to them. They taught me how to speak bloke. They taught me how to compete. They did teach me to be competitive. And they taught me how to understand the male humour. I'm not sure if that's possible, but I do try.
Let's move a few years now into your career. You were operating in a male space that dictated female culture. How did you navigate this?
I never thought I shouldn't be there. So if I met an obstacle, I'd just think there's a way around the obstacle. I've never thought a gender should be an obstacle for men or women in achieving the dreams that we have.
So you didn't see sexes, you saw people.
Yes, I never thought about it. I didn't know there was such a thing as a man's world to begin with. I soon discovered it, but I didn't know that it existed. I thought we were all equal.
You worked alongside some of the biggest swingers in media. Famously, you left one for the other. Was it like a thanks for the after dinner mints, KP? Uncle Rupert.
No, I would never do that to a hacker. Hackers have long memories. I think I was looking for a new challenge, and Rupert must have worked that out. He came to offer me television to begin with, and that's what intrigued me. And then he realised that I was restive and I wanted a new challenge, so he offered me the editor-in-chief jobs of the Daily and Sunday Telegraphs, on which I trained, because they were then owned by Sir Frank. And Sir Frank sold Telegraphs to Rupert about the time we were launching Clio.
What was the difference between print media and television at the time? Why was there an interest in TV for you then?
Because it was an unconquered challenge for me. I hadn't done it, and I wanted to do it. And I was offered, Channel 9 was part of the Packer empire, and the boys from 9 came and said to Kerry Packer, look, I'd be a good host of the Today Show. No, he said, no, you can't have her. And then 60 Minutes, they offered me a job. No, you can't have her. And I was restive, you see, and I thought, well, I loved the Women's Weekly. It was fantastic. But I felt that I could do it and something else, and that's something else that I was looking for.
So again, empowering women to own their space. I mean, that's kind of a very contemporary thing to say now. How did it help Australian men develop, do you think, by these women?
We're still hoping. No, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that, Thomas. Well, I think by example, but you've got to realise, you see, we accept a lot of the changes that have taken place today. But back when I was starting my career, and certainly in the 60s and 70s, men weren't married to career women. Men were married to wives who stayed at home, and there's nothing wrong with staying at home. We always said when we started Clio that it was all to do with choice, that women should make a choice about what they wanted to do with their lives and not apologise for them. And I think that's right. You choose what you want to do. Not all of us want a career. Not all of us want to get to the top. Not all of us want a big job. I think since COVID, there's been a very big change. I think a lot of women have realised that you can actually work from home and keep an eye on the children and still do your job. And I think a lot of women have liked that because we actually love children. You know, and when we go to work, it's hard to leave your children when they're very small. It's hard. You always have a sort of a little restive feeling when you leave them with someone else and they cry. So I think COVID has made a lot of women rethink what they're doing with their lives. I'm very interested to see how it all pans out.
And so let's go back to... Sorry. So what do you think happened to men back in the time when they realised that they were marrying career women? Was there any?
A lot of women gave their careers up because but look, I was the first woman to be on the board of Prudential, and this is classic. One of the male directors said to me, "Oh, Ita, you've changed the way we do board meetings." And I said, "Really?" Yes, he said, "We can no longer swear. And we can't tell jokes." And I said, "I love jokes, please, just tell it." And I said, "Look, anyone who's worked for Kerry Packer has heard more swear words than you probably even have heard. Swear on." I mean, The media is a tough ground. You know, people swear, including me.
Why is media so tough? And why is it getting tougher, do you think?
I don't know that it's getting tougher. What's getting tougher about the media is to work out which way we're all going. You know, we can see that print is... Rupert Murdoch was on Sky News a couple of weeks ago, and he gave newspapers another 10 to 15 years before they're all gone. He's a newsprint guy, so I thought he's probably right. He's probably right. And so we're looking to digital everything.
We're going to move into your second food memory now, which is glazed hams with raisins. When our dish comes out, we've done it with a potato salad as well, to beef it up, to make you feel like you've had dinner.
Ham it up.
Sorry?
Ham it up.
Ham it up, as it were. There you go. Who needs a script?
Yeah.
So now this is tell us about this memory.
Well, I'd won the Sydney Morning Herald's fashion contest, which was pretty shocking from their perspective, because I was the women's editor of the Daily and Sunday Telegraphs at the time. And I was at the races, and one of their representatives asked me if I'd enter their fashion contest, which we used to do at the races. And they'd given us the flick and given it to the Herald, our rival. And so I thought, well, why not? I said, I'd love to enter the contest. And I wasn't well known like I am now. So I gave her my married name. See how useful husbands can be. And she told me where to be for the judging, and I turned up and I won. I won this Sydney Morning Herald's fashion contest. So I returned to the paper.
What were you wearing, by the way, for the fashion?
I was wearing a very smart navy blue and white ensemble. It was a dress and a coat. I had a white Bobby's helmet, a white handbag, white gloves, and navy and white shoes. I looked quite smart, I thought. Anyway, they liked it, and so I returned to the paper, and I knocked on the door of the editor-in-chief, a man called Mr. McNichol, and I said, Mr. McNichol, a strange thing has happened. I've won the Sydney Morning Herald's fashion contest. And he burst out laughing. And he said, I've got to tell the old man. So he tears down the corridor and tells to Frank. I go upstairs to write my copy about what women were wearing at the races. And an order comes from Sir Frank that I'm to be photographed in my prize-winning outfit. And so I was. And then the next day, the Daily Telegraph on page 3 ran a full-page picture of me. Right filly, wrong stable. I mean, of all the things I did for Sir Frank, I think that was the one that gave him the most joy.
So you won this competition.
And my husband and I went, hello, that sounds like the Queen, doesn't it? My husband and I went to Montreal. So we flew over to Vancouver, and then we took the train across Canada. And we could see the Rockies, because the train have windows in the roof. So you could just sit in your seat in the train and just look up at the Rockies. It was a fantastic train trip, but the food was even better. So we went down to lunch one of the days, and they served this amazing baked ham and raisin sauce. And it was so yummy that when I got settled in eventually London, I found a recipe for raisin sauce and I made it. And it's really a nice dish. And the raisin sauce is made with mustard and wine vinegar and lemon zest. And the raisins become quite full and fat as you're mixing them all up. And it's a really yummy dish. I actually bought a recipe for you.
Oh, good.
I bought
something for you as well.
Oh, did you?
Well, I did. Well, tell me about this recipe you brought me, and then I'll
Well, it's in my handbag, which is in the dressing room, so you'll have to wait.
How much of the recipes of the food that you experienced overseas in your travels made it into your magazines in food features?
Oh, I don't think any of them did, really. I mean, not that there was anything wrong with it. I mean, we did fish in the Women's Weekly all the time. we did ham at Christmas, and the next one we haven't got to yet. I don't think I shared them with the weekly, but we did have a lot of food. We did the Chinese cooking class. Cookbook was under my watch, best ever recipes, dinner party cookbook. Food was a very important component of the Women's Weekly, especially in the country.
So travel, especially in the country. Tell us about this country.
Well, biscuits and cakes and things like that.
So did the women in the food section of the magazine travel to the country to get these? How did they get?
The weekly travelled to the country anyway.
Yeah.
And we had a test kitchen. Every recipe that appeared in the weekly was tested in the test kitchen. Nothing appeared in that magazine that the kitchen hadn't made, to make sure that even if we had a recipe in the fiction, someone would take it down to Ellen Sinclair, who ran the kitchen then, and she would cook it, and just to make sure that it was all right. We never wanted to give the readers a wrong information.
Tell us about this kitchen, this test kitchen at the weekly. It must have been an energetic hive of.
Oh, it was fantastic, and the photographers would take wonderful photographs, and they would sell the food to the staff afterwards. The trolley would come round, and one day the trolley came round, and Kerry Packer was in my office talking something or other, and the trolley went by, and someone said, "Do you want anything off the trolley, Ita?" And I said, "Oh yes, just get me that thing." And Kerry said, "What's the trolley?" And I said, "Oh, it's the food that we cook in the test kitchen. We sell it to the staff afterwards." He said, "It never comes to me." And after that, it was routed to go to Kerry's office before it came up to the weekly.
Interesting. So here at Three Food Memories, generally there are three silos that memories fall into. They fall into mother, grandmother, travel, and when they fall into the father territory, there's some really juicy stuff there because you uncover. But Ita, I've never had a memory that's involved an ex-partner, spouse, or intimate before. I ask you this from a personal perspective, is there freedom in being able to recollect this memory about the good times?
You mean because my husband and I got divorced?
Yeah.
Of course you remember the good times, because when you get married, you hope it's going to last. And it's awful when it doesn't, and when you realise it's not working. But of course there are good times, and besides which, he and I have produced two fantastic children, and we look at them and we were very proud of them. We are very proud of them. Unfortunately, he died about 14 years ago.
So let's speak about your family. You've got two children, Ben and Kate. Kate's here tonight, and there are 5 grandchildren. What are their names?
Jack, Elise, Byron, Claire, and Samantha, who are with us tonight.
I want to ask you, what do you call Ita? Gran, nan, nanny? Grandma Ita.
It's grandmother.
There is, so what do you want? When you think, again, like I've said, your career has spanned 8 decades. You started in your teens, you are now in your very early 80s. You are still working, you're still at the computer, you're on buckets of boards. You've seen the past, you've experienced the past, you're in the present. What do you see for our children's future, your grandchildren's future?
Well, I don't want to worry them. But I do worry. I do worry. The world is very unsettled. I do believe in climate change. Too many people who are supposed to think and make decisions on our behalf don't. I think unless we really take serious steps to mend our ways, we could be destroying the world. And that worries me. I think the most important thing is to work out what skills children will need in the future. They're not the skills probably that I needed when I started work. So it's hard to say because it's hard to tell the future. And at the moment, because of the wars that are raging in so many countries, it's very hard to feel settled enough to think well, maybe the world will be at peace, but the world doesn't seem to want to be at peace at the moment.
What would you like for their future?
I would like them to be happy, to make their own choices about their life, and to be fulfilled in whatever they do. Whatever their choice is, that's up to them. They know what's right and wrong, and as long as they always remember what's right and wrong, I trust them to forge their future. You heard it here, girls.
I got it for you. So there are a couple of nephews and nieces here as well, very proud nephews that have joined us this evening. But
Yes.
You had them working for you in your magazines as well, here and there, didn't you?
Oh yes, one's here, Rebecca. She worked for me. Her sister worked for me. My best friend's daughter worked for me. My daughter worked for me when she graduated as an architect during the recession we had to have, and she couldn't get a job. And I said, well, come and be my receptionist. And really, it was a smart move because she's a smart girl, and I learned so much about my business from having a very smart receptionist at the front desk.
Let's talk about that. So fame, power and influence are words, rightly or wrongly, associated with you. The truth is your fame and power are derivatives of your influence. What responsibility do you place on this influence? Because it's a very big platform to hold.
Well, first of all, you have to understand that power is fleeting. You can have it for a minute and then it's gone tomorrow. So you shouldn't get power go to your head. I think the magazines and the newspapers and the ABC, you have a responsibility to the readers and the viewers and, everybody else that switches you on. And they rely on you to do the right thing. And you try desperately to do the right thing and not to let them down.
Did you ever feel the pressure of I might not get this right? Did you ever second guess yourself?
I might not get this right. Why would I be thinking that?
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, you make decisions based on getting all the facts that you need to know. And if you make a mistake, you admit to making a mistake. I mean, we all make mistakes. The main thing is not to make the mistake again, learn from it. And apologise if you have to apologise. If it's something that you should apologise for, don't be afraid to apologise. It's fine. It's fine to make a mistake.
Well, during my research, and I did a lot, and there is a lot, I discovered a group of women who subscribe to something called Ita-ism. Huge fans, obviously. To this day, you inspire these women, Ita, with your hard work and your civic responsibility. But let's talk about these Ita-ites. These Ita-ites had names like Beryl, and they lived in regional areas like Coffs Harbour. In fact, we have a Beryl in the audience this evening who's turning 80 and has flown all the way from Coffs Harbour because she knew we were having this show. She's in the audience and she's bought a new frock and she's flown herself down to meet you this evening. Do you think I could invite her down to tell us why Ita is her icon?
I'd love to meet her.
Beryl, we need a waiter. Where are you?
Poor Beryl, she's in the middle, right at the back.
You're the next contestant. Come on down, Beryl. Everybody, big round of applause for Beryl. Beryl from Coffs Harbour. Happy birthday. Come and take a seat. Thank you. Come and take a seat and tell Ita. Look how excited. Oh, don't you cry on me on my show.
Hello.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank
Oh.
you. Oh. Thank you for coming down.
Come and take... I've got a few more birthdays probably. Come on, there you go. Beryl, now tell us... Oh, another round of applause for Beryl. Now, you have got opportunity to tell Ita why you love her so much. Oh, God.
What are you doing?
Well, she's very much of my era because I'm 80 next month. And, well, we grew up reading the Woman's Weekly, and very much, I was a teacher for 40 years. And being in a country town and sometimes feeling not isolated, but in need of information and relevant information that mattered to the people in the country. And the issues you covered in Cleo, the Woman's Weekly, and especially Ita. I had every single copy of Ita.
I do too.
You're luckier than me because I had them in a box downstairs and I had a flood from, I can't remember, the washing machine, dishwasher overflowed and went down through the floorboards and flooded.
Oh, no.
And I had to throw them out, which was heartbreaking for me. But yes, I treasured them because I thought here was a woman I had enormous admiration for. Nothing daunted you, nothing. I knew you had been through many things in your life, and I thought to myself, this is the woman who should be Prime Minister. Everything to me you said and did made perfect sense. It was just wonderful. And the thing was, I was looking at women who were battered and who were sad, and they were daunted by everything that happened in their lives. They didn't have that inner strength that you have. And how I used to think to myself, how do we give that to women? How do we give them the strength to handle being treated as lesser people? And you never let that happen to you. You never let the Kerry Packers and the people of the world, the men of the world, put you down. And that was a marvellous, to me, you were just the epitome of everything I wanted my children and my granddaughters to be. And for me, it's an absolute tragedy when I hear of these women who are so overwhelmed all the time by men. Talk about the glass ceiling. We had a lady up here at Coffs Harbour, I'm in Maxwell actually, a little bit further south, who went into politics. And after 2 or 3 years of doing a really good job, she tried really hard, but she said to me, Beryl, she said, I can't get through the glass ceiling. She said, I'm too tired. She said, I'm tired of fighting the men. And I thought that was the saddest thing.
I've often heard that about women, from women who've gone into Parliament, how tough it is.
It's sad, isn't it? It's extremely sad that we can't empower women with more strength to stand up to this.
Well, I think younger women seem to have a bit more, I was going to say resilience, but no, they don't. But they have a bit more confidence, I think. But they still need more. They still need more. So I think it's very important the role their fathers play in their lives, because the father is the first woman that you know when you're a girl, and it's very important that men give their daughter confidence to say, you know, when they come home from school, like one of my nieces, who's not here today, did, and she said, I'm fat. I said, no, you're not. You're perfect. No, she said, somebody said I was fat at school. I said, well, they're wrong. You're perfect.
Yes.
It took me forever to talk her around that. And I did suggest to her father that he'd tell her that she's beautiful the way she is, you know, without her knowing. Because you've just got to give them confidence. And I think the role of the father is often overlooked, but it's really important.
So many young ladies are growing up without a father.
Well, that's true, and so many boys are too.
Yes.
You need a male role model in your life.
Absolutely. I had a wonderful father who died far too young, but he certainly was a man who saw women as the strength of the earth. So
Yeah.
they are the mothers. They are the carers. They are the ones that instill real love into their daughters and their sons and make their sons caring of their mother and their sisters. And he had a tremendous, it was just an old-fashioned timber getter. He had a big timber truck, but he I can remember in our little small town of 2,000 people, when my father died, every shop in the town closed and the hot streets were lined with people. And he wasn't important, he didn't do anything outstanding, everybody loved him.
That's lovely.
Oh,
That's lovely.
Beryl, you don't have to end. You don't have to end, but I would like you to stand up and show everybody your beautiful dress and tell us, Beryl, tell us where this beautiful dress came from so we can hashtag it.
Have to.
Please stand up. Everyone's here to see this beautiful dress. Happy birthday, Beryl. Beryl, before you go, we have the Australian Woman's Weekly have a gift for you.
Oh, how lovely.
Here it comes.
I've already got the one in the bag. I've done all the puzzles already.
They've put together a lovely parcel. Oh, hang on. You need to carry this to her seat, Beryl's seat. So stay there. So there's a lovely look. There's all these bits and pieces courtesy of the Australian. Oh, I'm going to nick some shit out of this. But Beryl, also, there's a little present from 3 Food Memories. This is to cover your airfare, your dress, and there's an extra green back in there to buy yourself a packet of cigarettes, and later I'll see you at the back of it. Happy birthday, Beryl. Can you take this up? Thank you. Happy birthday.
You are a wonderful, wonderful woman.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Gemma, Sarah, where are you? That's all I've got to say. There you go. I couldn't have said it better.
No, thank you very much.
Now, let's move on to your 3rd food memory. Now, this food memory takes us to around about the time you were my age. You were 50. And it has to do, it's coming out at the moment. Now, this was a savoury dish, and when we were putting these tasting dishes together, we couldn't give you 3 tastings in a row. So what we've done, we've turned into a cheese course with some pan-fortin beautiful maple oat biscuits that we actually took from an Australian Woman's Weekly magazine.
Oh, cheese and strawberries, how nice.
Here we go. I think we need to bring that closer. But there you go.
Very nice. No, I won't eat. Very delicious.
We've saved
when you're eating.
We've saved you. Please tell us about this. Now, this story is about a baked chicken with parmesan and cheddar.
It's a dish I created. It's breast of chicken or thighs, whatever, but I use breasts. And you put it in a pan with some oil, virgin olive oil, not peanut oil. And I put a bit of garlic in there, and I slice up some onions. I just do very, very finely sliced onions, not really necessary, but garlic is. And tomatoes. So you can use fresh tomatoes and tinned tomatoes, maybe both, to give it a lot of tomato. And it simmers away, and then you grate cheese over it. So I use 3 cheeses. I use cheddar, parmesan, and maybe Gruyere, whatever you like. And you don't stir it from that time. You just let the cheese melt. And I tried it out on my children, and they all loved it. And so then I started to do it for dinner parties, and everybody liked it. And then during the recession I was running a publishing company and Ita magazine.
Oh, just by the way, we have the very first issue of Ita magazine here. Remember that?
Goodness me. Yeah, I do. Of course I remember it. The girl changed the colour of my eyes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Did she get this out?
I gave you Paul Newman blue, and I said, I like my eyes the way they are. Why did you change them? But anyway, she did. So that was the art director. Anyway, so I had to close the magazine eventually. The recession killed me. And I ran it for 6 years, and then I couldn't see any light at the end of the economic tunnel. And I thought, I want to do other things in my life, but if I don't let Ita magazine go, I won't be able to do them. So I had to let it go, and it was painful. It was painful to close the magazine, painful to close my company, and I went off and grieved for a bit, and I didn't go bankrupt. I paid all my staff their full entitlements. I just shut down, and I grieved, and then I thought, I've got to get going.
How long did you grieve?
Maybe 6 or 7 weeks or something like that. Not a lot, because I still had 2 children to support, and I had to get a job. I had to get some money. So I do a lot of work with Saxtons, a group in Melbourne. I do my speaking engagements through them. And at the time it was run by a lovely bloke called Winston Broadbent. So Winston rings up and says, I don't know whether this is appropriate, but he said, I've got an invitation for you to go to the Townsville shopping mall and cook a meal in the mall so people can have a bit of lunch with you, have a bite to eat with Ita, I think they called it. And he said, they'll pay you $3,000. And I said, I'll do it. I'll do it. So I thought, I know, I'll do my chicken, tomato and cheese dish. So this dish is very popular as far as I'm concerned because it earned me money as well. And no other dish that I have has ever done that.
Before.
It's a $3,000 dish. It went down really well in Townsville, I've got to say.
So you said earlier, and I mean, you famously paid every single creditor and employee. You didn't scase a thing.
No, I didn't.
Did that help alleviate the pain of closing the business down? No, nothing.
No, nothing does. It's a dream, and it didn't work. But dreams don't last forever. I know that. But it was painful.
Was it a humbling experience?
No. No, I'm never going to be humble. Look, I tried my best, and it didn't work. And as I said, I had to make the decision. I could struggle on, or I just had to let it go. And sometimes you do have to let things go in order to go on.
Let's talk a little bit about Ita. Now, Ita's magazine, the first edition, the exciting new magazine for women who weren't born yesterday. Now, the first issue came out on the 1st of March, 1989. What were some of the aspirations you had for this publication? What did you want to achieve with it?
Oh, well, it was a magazine for women who wanted to be informed, and, thinking women, like Beryl. Like Beryl. It covered issues that were of interest to women, not trivia. But that's not to say we didn't have fun. We had a sense of humour. That was in there, but I wanted women to have a voice. All the things I've ever done have been driven by one thing. I wanted Australian women to have a voice about the issues that affected them. At one point in Australia, there were no women in the House of Representatives. In 1972, when I started Clio, there were no women in the Federal House of Representatives. Can you believe it? So laws were made about women, with women never having a voice in what we wanted. And I just think that's unreasonable. We make up more than 50% of the population. Our voice needs to be heard.
And so when you're out there sort of trying to, or achieving and getting the space for women, what did you come up against?
Well, there are always obstacles. Now, you can whinge about your lot, or you can just think, as I said earlier, obstacles. There has to be a way around it. I'm going to find a way around it. And I always have found a way around them. You just keep persevering. I've never given up. I suppose that's it. I never give up. I just keep persevering.
Speaking of persevering, you became the chairperson of the National Advisory Committee for AIDS. You held this position from 1984 to 1988. You endured some very deep personal criticism and personal attacks for your work that you did in this space. Why?
Well, I didn't know a lot about AIDS when I took the job on, but Neil Blewett, the then health minister, had rung me and said the government was looking for a communicator that Australians would trust. And there was this virus called AIDS, and this is the way he described it, that seemed to be killing gay men. That's how he said it. And that's what said, that was a file note that he found in his locker, in his filing cabinet when he took over the job. And you know, when the government rings you and tells you that there's something you can do to help, I think you tend to say yes. So I said yes, and then I learnt what we were really facing, a virus for which there's still no cure, and which was spread by sexual intercourse and blood. And you think, well, surely the doctors will find a cure, you know. But it's a baffling virus, and they haven't found a cure. There are antiviral therapies now that have reduced the impact, and people do live a longer life. But at that time, young men were dying very early, many homosexuals. And everybody was so frightened. Everybody was frightened. They thought they could get the AIDS from teacups, AIDS from swimming pools, AIDS from kissing, AIDS from this, AIDS from touching something. And you'd have to keep saying, no, you don't get AIDS from mosquitoes. No, you don't get AIDS from teacups. And I would be on radio talking to a doctor, and then I'd say, we'll open up the lines. And then the first question was, hello, do I get AIDS from mosquitoes? You know, so you had to keep repeating the messages. And sometimes once I was walking the dog in Centennial Park, and it was only a puppy. It was Humphrey, a dog called Humphrey. We called him Humphrey. It was Cortica, as you like it. All our dogs came from Shakespeare's names. Anyway, the guy said, hey, Ida, what right have you got to spoil our sex lives? And because he was talking to me, the dog thought he was a friend. So the dog's jumping up and left very muddy paws all over his pads. I was so glad because he was so nasty to me. And then another time I was doing the morning show at 2KY, which was then at Parramatta, and I was crossing the road to go into the office, and a guy said, hey, Ida, why do you worry about those poofters? They're just drug users. Let them die.
Hang on. Are you telling me there were gay men having sex, taking drugs and having parties?
Yeah.
Do you have their numbers?
No. But cross my palm myself. No, you can't. So, you know, and people would write to me and sign a concerned Christian. And the contents of the letters were anything but what you'd expect from someone who signed themselves concerned Christian. I've kept all those letters, which is really interesting, yes, because people don't have letters anymore, but I've got a couple of boxes of AIDS materials that we used at that time. And sometimes when I look through them, I'm shocked at how little tolerance there was.
That was fear-based.
You know, it was all fear.
Yeah.
Yes, it was all fear. So it's a lot calmer now. In fact, I was at a function a couple of years ago. People living with AIDS, they had a party, and I ran into someone that I knew had HIV. And I said to her, you're looking so well, how are you? She said, the HIV is under control. She said, but I've got a terrible cold. I said, a cold? I said, don't come near me. That's how it's changed.
But seriously, you were a conduit to the standard Australian household, the nuclear family, so they could understand the seriousness of this virus epidemic. A huge job in the 80s.
It was, but it was a challenge. And the one thing that friendships have endured, which is really interesting because normally when you join committees to do whatever job the committee has, once the job is done, of course AIDS is still here, but once the job is more or less done, you go your own ways. But AIDS took over our lives. It really took us over. And a lot of the friendships have endured. I still see some of the people I worked with back in the 80s. We've become friends. And we still talk about HIV and where we're at today.
So you sit on a number of queer boards. One of them is Qtopia, which is, now let me get this right, it's the largest collection of queer memorabilia in the world?
It's a museum.
Museum.
It's a queer museum, I think we'd call it.
Yeah.
Utopia. Yes, it's the old police station in Darlinghurst. And it's well worth a visit because, you know, there's a lot of history there. I'm also on the Bobby Goldsmith.
Which is your chosen social cause this evening.
Yes, I'm patron of the Bobby Goldsmith Foundation, which is Australia's oldest HIV charity. It began about the same time we started NACAIDS, the National Advisory Committee on AIDS. So we have a lot of history between us. And I was talking to the CEO, Neilson, just the other day, and the big issue now is, like the rest of the community, gay people are getting older and they need specialised care. And if you've got HIV, you need to be treated by somebody who understands HIV and any precautions that you need to take. And it's very difficult. The whole ageing issue in Australia, I mean, it's all very well for the government to say, as it did recently, that wealthy people, well-off people are going to have to pay more for their aged care, which I support, but that's not the issue. We need more carers, we need better trained staff, we need trained staff to look after people with dementia, which is going to become the #1 killer of all Australians very shortly. Surpassing heart disease, we need better aged care for people with HIV, trans people are included in that. We need better aged care workers trained to look after older Australians. You know, the issue is more people are needed at the coalface, and the government hasn't addressed that issue as far as I can see. But I'm watching it. I'm watching it. But
let's talk about the Bobby Goldsmith Foundation,
Yeah.
which is your social cause. Who was Bobby Goldsmith?
Bobby Goldsmith was an American. He was one of the first people to get HIV. And back then it was called AIDS. You know, it was just called AIDS. And when he was diagnosed, he was living in Sydney. And his friends decided they would support him. And that's how it all started. So the friends of Bobby Goldsmith supported Bobby Goldsmith so he could die at home. And they looked after him. And that's the whole issue of Bobby Goldsmith Foundation today. They provide care for people with HIV so they can remain in their own homes. And if they need food, they organise food. If they need a bed, they organise a bed. Whatever they need, they treat them. They look after them.
I'm curious, why do you have such a vested interest in the queer community?
I don't know. But because I think of them as queer. I think of them as men and women, just like the rest of us. I mean, hell, we're all the same, really. We might have different choices and different feelings, but we're still the same people.
How do you feel when they say, oh, Ita, she's Australia's gay icon?
Well, I
Love it, she loves it.
I don't know that's to say it to me, but they're my friends. They're my friends. I like them. We have a lot in common.
So this leads into your advocacy around health advocacy around the ageing population. You just because you're old, it doesn't mean you
Older.
Older.
Older is a nasty word. Older is acceptable.
Just because you're older, your needs don't change, do they?
No, they don't. You still need companionship. You still need stimulation. You still need somewhere safe to rest your head. You need to be out and about. You shouldn't socially isolate yourself. Of course, the needs. And some older people have sex. I mean, a lot of people think older people don't have sex. That's wrong. We do. And it's still enjoyable.
We have an MFK Fisher Serve It Forth tradition here at Three Food Memories, where our previous guest presents you with a dish. My new best friend, Karen Martini, who I interviewed last week in Melbourne, serves you pasta vongole with lots of parsley, chilli, garlic and white wine, with anchovy here and there. She then backs it up with choux pastry, with this rich, luscious cloud cream she calls cloud cream, which is half creme pâtissière and cream, and then rains it over the top with pistachio praline. Our next guest is Australian astronaut and space systems engineer Katherine Bennell-Pegg. What would you like to serve her?
God knows. An astronaut. Well, they just have pretend food, don't they? I'd have to sort of. I was at the launch of the Aussat satellite in Florida many years ago, in the 80s, 86, 87, and I met Paul Scully-Power, who was the first Australian astronaut up in space, and he was an oceanographer, you might remember. I think I'd ring Paul and ask his advice.
I have to give her something, Ita, next week when I speak to her.
Well, give me a hand.
What would you
Does an astronaut eat?
I don't know, but what would you cook? What would come from the Ita repertoire, do you think?
The chicken.
Yes, the chicken.
The chicken.
Thank you very much.
The $3,000 chicken.
You can't go wrong with it.
Before we finish, I would like you to share your thoughts on this quote I found in Zadie Smith's book, White Teeth. You are never stronger than when you land on the other side of despair. How do you feel about that one?
Well, if you've had big grief in your life, when you get through it, you do feel much stronger. But you have to go through it. Life does have grief in it. There's just no doubt about it. Some grief is worse than others. The grief I felt when my brothers died was phenomenal. But you get through it. I've only got one brother left now, so I'm looking after him very carefully.
Please stand and clap the house down for the number of times Ita has stood up for humanity. Please, big round of applause, everybody. Thank you very much. Some very special thanks to our friends here at the Australian Chamber Orchestra and their team for taking great care of us this evening, to my heaven-plated and TFM folk, to my family who are at every direction, my parents north, my children south, my siblings east and west, to the lovely Space Furniture, Polyform, to Armadillo, to Beryl Lane, to Women's Weekly for Beryl's present, to Beryl. And to you, the audience, thank you so much for coming and celebrating this very special evening with myself and Ita. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. Naste kala fili, and bye for now. Thank you. And one more for Ita. Ah! Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. That's it for this episode of Three Food Memories.